In ancient Egypt, women were treated the same way as men because the Egyptian cosmology was made of both male and female divinities. And so in society, they had equal if not more prominence as men and shared the same rights, having the liberty to take part in the economic and political matters of the kingdom. Throughout the Egyptian religion, female divinities were mostly seen as nurturers and protectors of the pharaoh and his people. But unlike mainstream goddesses like Sekhmet or Isis, there are two others who are rarely talked about when discussing the Egyptian mythology. So today we're going to discuss the legends surrounding the entities closely related to the pharaoh's sovereignty. The goddesses Nekhbet and Wadjet representing the upper and lower domains of Egypt. Before we go any further, there is a confusion going around regarding the geographic locations of the two kingdoms of ancient Egypt. It's not because we say Upper and Lower Egypt that it refers automatically to northern and southern regions respectively, which of course is not true. Lower Egypt is found in the northern region and contains the fertile black land of Khemet, while Upper Egypt contains the barren areas of the southern region. So even though these terms may seem counterintuitive to their physical locations, they reflect the flow of the Nile River from south to north. With that being clear, that we can move forward. According to the ancient Egyptian scriptures, the two ladies was a religious epithet for the goddesses Nekhbet and Wadjet, the two deities worshipped by all after the unification of Lower and Upper Egypt. When the two kingdoms were joined together, a lot of similar deities from different cities were combined to form a unique entity, but this was not the case of Wadjet and Nekhbet, as they were simply kept separated. Both divinities were retained because of the importance of their roles and became the two ladies, the protectors of the unified kingdom. From the early dynastic period, the two ladies were the divine protectors of the king and were featured on royal headdresses, jewelries, and furniture. Nekhbet, whose name signifies She of Nekheb, was a local mother goddess identified with the crown of Upper Egypt, equating to Wadjet, the snake goddess of royal authority whose name stands for the green one or she of the Papyrus, for she is believed to have created the papyrus swamps of the Verdun Delta region. Her chief cult center were the twin cities that were made home of legendary kings of Khemet and eventually became to be known as the House of Wadjet. The two ladies were represented by dangerous creatures that needed to be pacified in order to show how deadly they could be as protective deities. Wadjet is often depicted as a fire-breathing cobra, and Nekhbet takes the form of a vulture with wings spread apart while holding the symbols of eternity in her talons. While it is pretty much self-explanatory why the cobra would be such a deadly creature, the vultures were feared by the ancient Egyptians because they were known to devour and disperse the corpses buried in a desert, not quite the end they would like for themselves. Nekhbet was also depicted as a white cow mentioned in the pyramid scriptures, a familiar representation in respect of Egyptian mothers and creator goddesses. In the form of a vulture, the goddess Nekhbet is shown hovering above the king, and the goddess Wadjet has the Uraeus symbol displayed on his crown, which epitomizes the power of the pharaoh's sovereignty. And thus Wadjet forms an essential part of the sun god's symbolism, coiling around the sun to represent the destructive powers of the solar eye of Ra. In order to balance this concept, Nekhbet was associated with the light of the moon, or the eye of Horus. One of the 5 names given to the reigning pharaoh was referred to as Nebty, which means the two ladies based on the standard naming convention used by the ancient Egyptians. These 5 epithets encapsulated to some extent the Egyptians' views of kingship, drawing attention to the role of the pharaoh and emphasizing the division of Egypt into 2 parts both under his control. The Nebty name is usually not framed by a Serek, but since it is associated with the patron goddesses of Upper and Lower Egypt, it always begins with the hieroglyphs of a vulture and a cobra resting upon a basket, indicating the dual nature of its name. The rest of it varies depending on each pharaoh, and it was read as he or she of the two ladies followed by the meaning behind the remaining title. At his accession, the ruler was given the title he of the two ladies, with both goddesses shown in their human form on either side of him. And of course, the male equivalent to the two ladies were the two lords, Horus and Seth, who stood for Lower and Upper Egypt respectively. Although these gods always fought each other in many stories, they often come together to show their support to the new ruler, and these moments of reconciliation were symbolized by a two-headed god representing them. After the unification of both kingdoms, the image of Nekhbet joined Wadjet on the Uraeus as a twin cobra, and this representation became a major part of the Egyptian crowns afterwards. The two ladies' title was also used when speaking of the queens of Egypt, as from the Middle Kingdom it was common for the queen to have an epithet that reflected her joining the king in this role of unification. Therefore, beside this formal connection to kings, the queens of Egypt also connected themselves to the two ladies in their royal regalia. The vulture headdress became a symbol of motherhood. Then from the 6th dynasty, the queens who were prospective royal mothers began to wear the vulture headdress and the Uraeus. In later dynasties, the double Uraeus became a common brow ornament for the daughters, royal wives and mothers of kings. Many believe that the similarity of both goddesses in royal jewelries implies a warring opposition between them, but no specific myths relating to their conflict survive. What we do know, however, is that the two ladies were responsible for establishing the laws, protecting the rulers and the kingdom while promoting peace. The use of their image on the crown was retained even during the rule of Akhenaten, who got rid of the worship of deities other than his own chosen favorite, Aten. As soon as his reign ended, the ancient traditions were fully restored and were even embraced by the subsequent foreign rulers of Egypt until the collapsing of the Roman Empire. In the temple of Horus at Edfu, the two goddesses are displayed crowning a pharaoh with a double crown acquired from the union of their separate ones. The two ladies are represented wholly as women in the same way as the other gods, without those zoomorphic details common in traditional Egyptian paintings. However, if we pay close attention, the two headdresses in this representation are inconsistent with the traditional ones. The vulture related to Nekhbet is seen on both of them, and the cobra representing Wadjet is missing from what is shown as her own. These tiny details indicate our lack of awareness of their tradition by foreigners, who nonetheless prefer to be seen as a cultural continuation. They embraced the Egyptian religion, but with their own fashion while introducing the concepts that were taken from Greco-Roman religious beliefs, which were significantly less zoomorphic than those of the ancient Egyptians. Protective and fearsome is an ideal combination describing the goddesses of ancient Egypt, and the two ladies are no different. Often shown hovering above and staring down on whoever stood before him, they are some of the most caring divinities always remaining by the side of the pharaoh. This concludes today's video regarding the divine protectors of the king, Nekhbet and Wadjet. So if you have any thought you would like to share with us, feel free to do so in the comment section down below. And as always, stay curious.